Welcome to our channel, where the boundaries of fate, courage, and honor blur in an epic saga. Dive into a world where powerful clans, ancient rituals, and unbreakable bonds dictate the destiny of those who dare to challenge them. In this gripping tale, Callan, a humble mercenary, is unexpectedly drawn into the chaotic world of the Keth family, a family bound by tradition, yet on the brink of a transformative revolution. When Callan steps into the ring to protect Thalia, a warrior caught in an age-old ritual, he unknowingly sets off a chain of events that defy the very rules that have governed this world for generations. With every challenge, from life or death combat to mind-bending trials, Callan must prove his worth in the eyes of a clan that may not even accept him, while grappling with the evolving dynamics of love, loyalty, and an ancient prophecy that could change everything. Can a simple outsider prove himself worthy of the Keth legacy? Will Callan and Thalia rise above the challenges that await, or will the weight of tradition crush their hopes for a new future? Join us on this extraordinary journey where swords clash, minds are tested, and hearts are bound by destiny. In the dense darkness of the ancient arena, only the heavy rain, like cold stones slamming against the ground, could be heard. Lightning flashed in the dark violet sky, casting an eerie mist that covered the entire space. The ground, slippery and muddy from the continuous rain, reflected the faint light from the dim lamps above. The Keth clan warriors stood around the arena, tightly gripping their weapons, their eyes tense but not daring to move. Every gaze was fixed on the two combatants engaged in battle. Thalia, the silver-haired girl, the only surviving daughter of a once great clan, was struggling against Draxton Keth, a massive and powerful opponent twice her size, a battle-hardened warrior with a broad frame, his furrowed brows resembling an impending storm. She moved swiftly, her clan sword flashing silver in the night, but her strength was waning, each swing of the blade seeming more fatigued than the last. She was like a steadfast flame trying to hold back a great storm, yet her legs were beginning to tire, her eyes casting a weary look at her silver blade, almost knowing that this battle would soon come to an end. Draxton, with fury burning in his dark eyes, relentlessly attacked. Each strike was like a flood, sweeping everything in its path, leaving Thalia no choice but to brace herself and retreat helplessly. Her eyes grew dim, her mind spinning from the pain, yet her indomitable spirit refused to let her fall. In that tense moment, Callan, an intergalactic mercenary, appeared from the shadows. Born into a world of brutality and war, he had never been involved in the complex rituals of any clan. But as soon as he witnessed this scene, something stirred inside him. He couldn't stand by and watch a young girl fall at the hands of such a powerful foe. Without hesitation, Callan charged forward, gripping Thalia's clan sword. The light from the blade flashed like a sacred fire, cutting through the heavy air. When the blade met Draxton's sword, a loud clash echoed, as if the very space was torn apart in that moment. The entire arena fell silent. All eyes turned toward Callan, a figure none of them had ever seen before. He did not belong to this clan, he had no right to interfere in this sacred ritual. But with a single act, Callan shattered all the rules. Not only did he save Thalia, but he also awakened an ancient power no one had anticipated. The atmosphere was thick with silence as the warriors and the Keth clan elders watched in disbelief. Callan holding Thalia's clan sword was a gesture that, according to ancient law, bound him to her as her future husband. In that moment, the entire arena stood frozen, unable to comprehend what had just occurred. Callan stood frozen, his mind filled with confusion, unable to understand what had just transpired. He had only wanted to help the girl in the fight, but now he had become entangled in a ritual he didn't comprehend. The elders of the Keth clan, who had witnessed everything, emerged from the shadows like ghosts, their cold eyes devoid of emotion. They began to speak of ancient laws Callan could not understand. "You have broken the sacred ritual of our clan," one elder, whose gaze seemed as deep as an endless abyss, spoke coldly, his voice echoing through the space. "According to ancient law, whoever holds the clan sword in this battle will be bound to the one who possesses it in an unbreakable bond." Thalia, still lying on the ground with heavy wounds, turned her face towards Callan. Her gaze was full of disappointment, but there was also a hint of gratitude. "I did not ask for your help," she said, her voice hoarse with exhaustion and pain. "You've broken everything. We cannot turn back now." Thalia's words cut deep into Callan's heart. He had only wanted to do the right thing, but now he was trapped in a chaotic mess with no way out. Every eye was on Callan. Meanwhile, Draxton Keth, the man Callan had just fought, couldn't stand idly by. With his massive frame and eyes full of hatred, he pointed at Callan and spoke like a wild beast ready to strike. "This outsider has no right to stand beside our clan." Draxton growled, his voice like a wolf preparing to pounce on its prey. "He's not worthy. He is just an outsider." Draxton, a fierce and proud warrior, challenged Callan to a final battle to prove his worthiness to stand as Thalia's husband. A life-or-death fight was inevitable. Though confused and not fully understanding what was happening, Callan decided to confront Draxton. He realized that this was his only chance to save Thalia and the Keth clan from collapsing. Unable to back down, Callan braced himself to face a seasoned warrior in a battle where he didn't know if he would survive. The cold winds from the storm outside blew into the arena, as if signaling that everything was descending into darkness. The atmosphere in the arena became suffocatingly tense, with the crowd standing silently along the stone walls, their eyes fixed on the next fight. Draxton stood outside, his gaze like a raging storm, full of anger and contempt. He pointed toward Callan, who had interfered in Thalia's fight, disrupting the ancient ritual. "If you want to prove yourself, face Kororax, the mightiest warrior of the Keth clan." Kororax, known as the Bloodstorm, emerged from the shadows. Each of his steps echoed like thunder in the rain, his eyes glowing red, his muscular frame clad in gleaming metal armor that seemed to contain the very essence of storms. Trained from childhood in the ancient arts of combat, Kororax was a nightmare for anyone who dared face him. Callan stood opposite, a cold feeling rising in his chest. He knew nothing about this battle and had no preparation other than himself. His hands gripped the family sword, but the truth was, he couldn't rely solely on muscle to defeat a powerhouse like Kororax. From his years as a mercenary, he'd learned that fighting was a combination of reflexes, quick thinking, and sometimes, sacrifice. With Draxton's command, the battle began. Kororax charged like a whirlwind, his sword flashing like lightning in the rain. Each of his strikes was a thunderous blow, tearing the air around him. Callan could only dodge, his eyes constantly scanning, looking for a weakness in his opponent's fighting style. Despite the fatigue, the pain from his wounds, Callan refused to step back. He couldn't rely on sheer muscle, That was a hard lesson he'd learned from past battles. He had to become a cunning warrior, like the street fighters he'd encountered across the planets. Agility, quick reflexes, and situational awareness were his keys. As coral rocks continued to relentlessly attack, Callan realized he had to do something unexpected. He launched an attack, taking a powerful blow to his shoulder, but he didn't step back. Regaining his balance, he swiftly swung his sword, facing coral rocks, who staggered from the unexpected strike. Callan quickly saw an opening, and in an instant, he dove in, using a powerful wrist strike. Coral rocks, caught off guard, lost his balance. Callan swept the sword across his opponent's knee, causing him to fall to the ground. Coral Rox's mighty body crashed against the wet floor, but that didn't stop Callan. He jumped, bringing his sword down towards Coral Rox's throat. Coral Rox's labored breath ceased, and the arena fell silent. A deathly silence engulfed the arena, making it hard for the crowd to believe their eyes. A human, not a Keth, had defeated a great warrior like Coral Rox? Whispers began to ripple through the crowd, but Callan remained standing, gasping for breath. This battle was not just about muscle but about quick thinking and courage. The Keth warriors could only look at each other in shock. However, Draxton could not accept this defeat. His teeth ground in frustration, feeling his power threatened. In his eyes, Callan was unworthy of the Keth clan, and he could not allow a mere human to taint the honor of the Keth name. After defeating Coral Rox, Callan felt he had earned some validation of his abilities, but his journey was far from over. To prove himself truly worthy, Callan had to face the intellectual challenge. He had to solve difficult riddles about the history of the Keth clan, the ancient strategies, and the forgotten secrets passed down through generations. The questions were complex, involving legends of ancient dragons battling dark forces and wars where the blood of the Keth clan had been spilled. Though he had little time to prepare, Callan could not avoid it. Thalia, despite still bearing the wounds from the previous battle, stayed by his side. She gently guided Callan through the things he couldn't understand, using her knowledge of the clan's strategies. If you want to win, you must understand what made this clan. It's not just the strength of weapons, but the power of intellect, of history. Finally, with Thalia's help, Callan solved all the riddles. Despite the tension and pressure, he proved that with intellect and perseverance, he could overcome the challenges set before him by the Keth clan. But that wasn't all. The final challenge was a spiritual test, where Callan had to face himself. He was put into a deep meditative state, where he had to confront the darkest memories of his past, the brutal battlefields he'd been part of, the difficult decisions he'd made. He had to confront all the mistakes and choices that had shaped who he was. In this meditative state, Callan found himself back in the painful days when he was a mercenary, filled with violence and brutality. He remembered the times he had killed innocent people, and the moments when he had felt lost and without purpose. In these moments, he had to ask himself, could he leave behind this dark past, or would it haunt him and prevent him from becoming the man the Keth clan needed? But in that moment, Callan realized something important. He couldn't change the past, but he could decide his future. And to protect Thalia's clan, he was willing to sacrifice everything. Tears flowed down his cheeks, but he understood that this was the moment to step out of the darkness and become someone else, a person with responsibility and unwavering resolve. The ground shook beneath the heavy footsteps of Draxton. The entire arena was suffocatingly thick with tension, the rain still falling heavily, carrying waves of cold mist. Draxton stood at the center, his eyes gleaming like flames signaling an incoming storm. The hatred in his gaze was not only directed at Callan. He despised the change Callan brought, a change the Keth clan could not easily accept. This was not just a physical battle, it was a battle of beliefs, of loyalty, and the disruption of an ancient order. Callan stood opposite Draxton, his hand gripping the Invar family sword, feeling the weight of responsibility. He was not just fighting to protect Thalia, he was fighting for a new future for the Keth clan, a future where the chains of the past no longer ruled. The dim light of the sword reflected on his face, as if challenging fate itself. As the battle began, the space around them seemed to expand, drawing in each furious blow. Draxton, with his towering form and powerful strikes, easily forced Callan into a defensive position. But Callan did not yield easily. Every movement was a quick reflex, a testament to his undying courage and the desire to win for those he loved. Callan realized he couldn't win this battle with just brute strength. He needed a strategy, to seize every opportunity, no matter how small. The rain became heavier, each drop stinging his body, blurring his vision, making the fight more intense than ever. Yet, in that darkened space, Callan felt an odd calmness. His heart was filled with determination, not for personal victory, but for family, for Thalia, for everything the Keth clan had yet to see. Though in pain, exhausted, nearly defeated under Draxton's storm of attacks, Callan still stood firm. In a moment that could not be explained, he charged, using everything he had learned throughout his life, not just fighting skills, but lessons in perseverance, the times he had to rise after every fall. A powerful strike from Draxton sent Callan crashing to the ground, but instead of being pushed back, he used his own strength to spring back up. Under the dim light of the sword, he looked at Thalia, and their eyes met, silently communicating a message. Draxton's death was not something he desired, but if Draxton didn't stop, Callan had no other choice. Thalia, standing among the crowd, was the only thing that kept him going. With a sudden breakthrough, Callan leapt, slashing at Draxton's sword, forcing him to retreat. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze, the only sounds being their heavy breathing and the palpable tension in both of their gazes. Draxton looked at Callan, then suddenly withdrew, not saying a word. The crowd witnessed the change, a victory not just for an individual, but for a new future. Finally, Draxton fell. It was not merely the defeat of a fighter, but a symbol of the change awaiting the Keth clan. Callan stood tall, blood staining his face and body, but the light in his eyes extinguished all doubts. He had won, not through strength, but through resilience, determination, and belief in a better future. After Draxton's fall, Callan and Thalia stood together, their eyes meeting with pride and understanding. Though their wounds were still fresh, in their hearts, they had found deeper empathy and understanding than ever before. They were not just fighting for the clan, but for a new world where love and loyalty could bring about change. The entire Keth clan watched the battle unfold, and a noticeable shift began to form in their minds. The elders, the seasoned warriors, for the first time started questioning the ancient principles they had followed for centuries. Thalia stood there, witnessing this change, her heart filled with emotions. She had not just won, she had paved a new path for the Keth clan. Callan and Thalia were not just husband and wife but symbols of unity and sacrifice. Their love had overcome not only physical challenges but also bridged the past and the future. Together, they rebuilt the Keth clan, not only with strength but with intellect and resilience. As the crowd looked at them, they saw not only the victory of a battle but the victory of love, change, and unity. Callan and Thalia had become living symbols of the noble values the Keth clan needed. In a solemn ceremony, Callan and Thalia stood side by side, the light from the family sword illuminating their faces, reflecting a future full of hope. Warriors from other clans looked at them, not just in admiration, but as a reminder that love and loyalty could change an entire planet. The Keth clan members began to see the world differently, realizing that differences could be reconciled, and that change didn't always mean collapse, it could be the foundation for stronger growth. And as Callan and Thalia held hands, looking toward the future, they knew the challenges ahead would no longer be daunting, for they were not fighting alone, they had each other, and they had the entire Keth clan behind them.